Well, good morning. Something a little bit different this morning. One or two people have asked to see a little bit more of Eddie here. Eddie! Eddie! So here we are. It's 5:30 on a Monday morning. And where I am now, I'm very lucky, is literally 2 minutes from my doorstep. 2 minutes walk from my doorstep here in Bingley. And this is high up on the side of the Aire Valley. And it's basically some people call it the moor, some people call it the crag, but it's a network of paths that run through variously wooded stroke moorland stroke rocky outcrops area. It's beautiful, and obviously I know it like the back of my hand. I can do it in the pitch black. Which obviously at other times of the year I have to do, but here we are right in the middle of June, and it's been unseasonably for England a very, very warm period, both the last 2 weeks and certainly the forecast going forward. The weather is drier, the sky's clearer, and the temperatures a good bit warmer than we would normally expect at this time of year. And I've been around for quite a while. I mean, I've had 40 years of adult life, and vast majority, well, all of it basically, living up here. And throughout that time, of course, I've been a keen motorcyclist, photographer, dog walker, so as you can imagine, I'm fairly finely attuned to the weather. I have very, very mixed feelings about it, particularly when it comes to the debate about climate change and global warming and the net zero response, which I still consider to be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. But it is definitely the case, I can say from personal experience, I assume that a lot of you will equally be able to do the same thing, that the frequency of good weather like this earlier and earlier in the year is increasing year on year. When I look back over the last few decades at exceptionally warm and dry summers, they're certainly by no means unique to the 21st century. And when I think back, I mean, the one I remember, the first one I remember, was the famous long hot dry summer of 1976. And I was 13 going on 14 in 1976, and yes, it was a long hot dry summer. It lasted for months. And then in September it rained solidly for months virtually, so it evened itself out, and nature has a way of doing that. I mean, we've got this warm dry spell now, but the late winter and early spring were just virtually wall-to-wall rain. So there is a certain aggregation in the weather between the precipitation and the dry spells, but they just seem to be becoming more and more polarised, which sort of sits with what a lot of scientists have been advocating, though not all, it's fair to say. So yeah, it got me thinking. But yeah, 1976, and then the next one I remember was 1995. That was a long hot summer. I was a newly promoted sergeant working out of a place called Manningham in Bradford, troubled area, and we had a weekend solid of rioting on the streets. So that was something of a long hot summer of discontent. And And then the next one I remember after that was 2006. That was another long hot summer. And 2018, probably the most recent. And all of them characterised really by a general browning of the landscape, particularly the grasslands, and that's starting to happen again now. So anyway, that's the Ayr Valley, that is Bingley down there. Bingley at 5:30 on a Monday morning. Beautiful. Oh yeah, and on Eddie. I've had dogs all my life, most of them have been German Shepherds. Eddie is our second German Shepherd rescue dog. That is, he doesn't rescue people, but he has been rescued. I got him from those wonderful people at German Shepherd Rescue Elite a year ago. And he was 2.5 when we got him. He's 3.5 years old now. Don't know a great deal about the first years of his life, other than to say that obviously he'd been the victim of some irresponsible ownership. In fact, we're told that the last of his first 3 known owners sold him on Gumtree for a tenner. Eddie? Eddie, can you believe that some scumbag did that? And it's a typical German Shepherd adolescent, so he has some behavioural issues which take a lot of work and dedication. But if you're going to have a dog like this, any dog in my view, you've got to put the hard yards in, and if you're not prepared to do that, don't get a dog. It's that simple. I never grow tired of repeating that basic truth. If you're not prepared to put the hard yards in with your dog, don't get one, and certainly don't get a rescue dog. You've got to keep at it, you've got to put up with the occasional mauling, and you've got to get used to identifying certain trigger points which bring out aspects of personality which are rooted in a terrible first couple of years in life, and you've got to get your head around that. So I'll say again, if you're not prepared to put the hard yards in, get up at 5:30 in the morning or whenever, and not just on a beautiful June day like this, but in the middle of a dark, wet winter. If you're not prepared to do that, don't get a dog. It's that simple. Right, got that over with, because I was talking about the area and the climate. So you can see this area here, it's beautiful, and the wildlife as well is really, really diverse. I've seen here foxes, deer, there's rabbits everywhere, squirrels everywhere, and the bird life is very, very diverse indeed. Eddie. So don't worry, yes, this is and always will be a motorcycle channel, but I'm just sort of responding as best I can to a couple of requests, some from people saying can we see more of Eddie, and some people saying can we have more discussion about the green agenda and what have you, and others wanting to see a little bit more of the local geography here in Yorkshire. So here we are, right on my doorstep. I just come back from Whitby yesterday morning. Fabulous ride over Fylingdales Moor, over the North Yorkshire moors there, the whole of Hawcombe. Beautiful place, Whitby. And I don't know whether that video will be up by the time you see this, or whether this will go up first, but it matters not. Oh, and the next bike test on Wednesday out of Appleyards will be the vanilla Suzuki V-Strom 1050. I've already done the V-Strom 1050 DE, but I'm now going to take out the standard model and see what it's all about. Right, let's go down here. It's going to get a little bit dark. So yeah, the climate. So I've said on many occasions that Although I profoundly doubt the wisdom of the strategic response by governments, particularly the governments of the Western democracies, to so-called climate change, I don't deny its existence for 1 minute. You'd be a fool to deny what we've seen recently in northeast Canada with the wildfires there, the biggest on record, and what we've seen in terms of extreme weather events right across the globe, whether they're storms or floods and all these things around El Nino. And you really would have to be thoroughly blinkered not to have tuned into that. But I've always said it poses two questions, and one is, well, yes, it's happening, but is it wholly or mainly man-made, or is it part of the Earth's known, established, historic cycle of warming and cooling? And the other question really is the response, as seen in agendas like clean air zones and ULEZ zones and restricted travel and the rest of it, the right response? And I think my views on that are clear at the moment. It's really peaceful down here at this time, as you can imagine. What do you say, Eddie? So yeah, obviously it's an ongoing issue of concern, particularly to us motorcycles, because the whole thing affects the future of private vehicle use. And the way I see it, private vehicle use is being ever more polarised, and we are slowly regressing back to far earlier times, many decades ago, when indeed it was only the very wealthy that enjoyed the benefits of private transport that they were able to use at any time to go anywhere, and the rest of society was confined to a crumbling public transport network, or to staying put, unless there were the exceptionally fit people that can cycle for hundreds of miles, or indeed walk. And you combine that reality with the proposals for so-called 15-minute cities, or 15-minute communities, neighbourhoods, whatever you want to call them, where it is proposed that everything that you will ever need will be right on your doorstep, except, of course, your opportunity to gain solace, catharsis, and a soothing of the soul from the wider countryside. Apart from that, which nobody needs, of course, you'll have everything that you need. Whoopee-doo. So yeah, for us as motorcyclists, it's a big issue. Right, I'll just take my ND filter off. Oh, that's a bit better. There's Eddie and his collection of local woodland. You idiot boy. So yeah, it's always an ongoing and increasingly frequent concern for us as motorcyclists. But we've got, I suppose, in many ways we have the advantage of being motorcyclists first, probably, and car drivers second in many cases, and I reckon we're usually 3 or 4 years in terms of legislative impact behind car owners. So car driving is a bit of a bellwether for what lays down the road for us as motorcyclists. So we watch that with considerable interest, but increasing concern. And you know, I think the battle lines are firmly drawn now, and we just need to see whether, when as it is doing, the default position of controlling and legislating by government rubs up against the instinctive, natural feelings of freedom and independence on the part of the population. When those two rub up together, what the outcome is. And I'd like to think in terms of numbers alone that the latter will prevail. And we shall see. We live in interesting times from that point of view. Don't we, boy? What I recommend is every opportunity you get on your bike, go to some of these. I call them spiritual places, but special places. And places that I've been recently that you'll have seen on the channel. You know, the moors above Pateley Bridge, the Mid Valley, Semmer Water, the North York Moors, Whitby. And of course they're not exclusive to Yorkshire, these places. And I'm sure you all know what I mean, but I would say the best way forward is, first of all, before you can really take a meaningful position, an informed position, is just go out on your bike to these places. Just go on your own, and go at a time of day when you know it's going to be really, really quiet, and just ride there and ride through the landscape, and then find a spot and then sit down and reflect upon how important it is to you, what part it plays in your life, and how it sort of defines everything that's good in the world, and sets aside therefore everything that's bad in the world, and it gives you a very, very clear perspective about what's important and how much it's worth defending. And don't get me wrong, if suddenly Bingley became a 15-minute city, and the restrictions that we already have around the district become ever more draconian, we would still have this. We're 2 minutes away, but it's not the same. It's not the same as knowing you can jump on your own bike and go anywhere in this beautiful county and beyond, and enjoy what nature has given to us, not what it has given to an entitled few. As I've said before, all these uber rich people that own massive swathes of land, a lot of them are either foreign companies that have just decided to invest in land purchase, or big property developers that have just invested in land, or they're owned by people that have inherited it. I'm talking about, you know, hundreds and thousands of square miles of land, not just people that might happen to have a nice big garden. There's no issues there. If you've worked hard and you've got yourself a nice house and a nice big garden, good luck to you. I'm not on about that at all. I'm on about people who think that they were born to dictate who can and who can't access the land. They weren't. Eddie, boy. Anyway, so just a few thoughts there on this beautiful morning. And yeah, so that's Eddie. And think it's worth pointing out as well, because I was talking earlier about responsible dog ownership, that this is how his walks pan out. He's always got his heavy duty muzzle on. He's always on the lead, never ever off. He's always got his harness on. He always gets cleared up after. Sorry to have to show you that, but he does. And the only problems I have here when it gets busier is irresponsible people with dogs off the lead that do not respond to their owners' commands, if they get any commands from the owners, whose owners do not clear up after them. Because of course the dog's off lead and it can be going anywhere and everywhere around here and doing what dogs do. They ain't got a chance in hell of knowing where to pick it up. And they're the ones that give me the withering look when I've got a dog on a lead with a muzzle that I'm clearing up after. And when their dogs run up and give Eddie a stack of grief that he can do nothing about, obviously, other than get very excited and cause me a load of hassle, they give me the withering look. What is wrong with some people? But I would heavily caveat that by saying probably 90% of people, because they know us by now and they know he's a rescue dog and they know we're putting a lot of effort into getting him straight, so 90% of people, when they see us, they will put their dog on a lead. And I will always either climb up the side of an embankment like that or go the opposite way and do whatever we can to avoid any sort of difficulty. But some people just seem quite happy to let the dogs off the lead, run up, cause a commotion, and then somehow try and suggest by way of a section 1 stare that it might be my fault rather than theirs. But such is life. People can be like that, can't they? Fortunately, most people aren't. And a word that springs to mind in places like this and other places that you might visit on your bike in a quiet moment, and that's communion. And it's not just about enjoying the visual beauty and the sounds of your surroundings, it's about communion. And that means it's a two-way process, because we're all part of nature. We're all made of exactly the same stuff that these trees are made of, that the earth's made of, those rocks. We're all made of the same stuff, and there's one certain thing in life, and that is that we are sure to return to the same elemental state and then go on to be reconstituted in some form or another in the future of the universe. That much is certain. So in that sense, even reincarnation is an absolute reality, because the bits that we're made of just get redistributed, don't they? But it's about communion. It's about not just enjoying the visual and acoustic beauty of your surroundings. It's about having an exchange with them and appreciate that you're not just in and on the landscape, but you're also living with the landscape. And we're all part of the same ecosystem, which is Gaia or Mother Earth, whatever you want to call it. And so I think it's important not only just to take into account the view when you're in these places, but to try on your own level to tune into it all. Communion. And of course through the year it changes. The landscape is evanescent. Another overly big word, some of you might say, but evanescent is a fantastic word, and it just means always being reborn. And it's the best part of life. Right, so we'll meander our way back now. What we heading? Have a spot of breakfast. And if you've got this far, thank you for listening to me drone on. And in the meantime, ride safe, be kind, and I'll catch you again soon. Toodle pip.